Hello, my friend. Welcome back to the Mindset Check podcast. I'm your host, Misha McKittrick. This is a podcast where I believe that as you take time for a mindset check, you have more power than you think you do. And where we also believe that giving yourself time or being abundant with time has a lot to do with the way that we think about it. So today we're going to take a quick mindset check around that, and hopefully you will leave feeling like, wow, I really do have more time than I thought. It's so good. All right, before we jump into the podcast today, I want to share with you a couple of things that I love. So one of the things, I love drinks, okay? So you had me at hello with whatever yummy drink you're about to offer me. But one of the things that I really love are drinks that I know actually really are good for me. I kind of get in my head sometimes around that. So when I want to drink something that is really yummy for my body, I literally just add two things to my water. And the two things that I add is either fresh citrus juice from any type of citrus, right? So like lime, lemon, grapefruit, orange, anything like that, and just squeeze it in my water. And then I add a few drops of stevia. Now, if I don't have fresh citrus, or if I don't want to take the time to squeeze fresh, say that 10 times, fresh citrus, then I sprinkle in this little product from True Lime that's basically dehydrated citrus, and they have lots of different flavors. And then I still add the stevia. It is such a treat. So I'll make sure that you have the links to the product that I'm talking about with the dehydrated citrus and the stevia that I love. It's just liquid stevia, 100% just natural stevia. So delicious. And it's such a perfect drink on a hot day. Another thing that I want to recommend for you that I really love is the movie The Power of One. So I read the book years and years ago, and last weekend I watched the movie. It is so inspiring to see, anytime we have stories that are true stories where the human spirit really goes through a lot, it makes us double check like our own story. And we're like, okay, we got this. If that person can do that, I can do this, right? If they can do that and come out standing and triumphant, then I can do what I'm doing. So that is just a really great flick if you want to watch it. If you happen to be joining us for the first time in season 3, we really focus on all of the mindset checks around what we can do in our life to help us keep an inner state that allows us to live an expansive life, that allows us to live bigger and better than we thought we could. Season 1 and season 2, I kind of share a little bit more of my story while also sharing a lot of motivational and good things about life. So those are also great things to check into. But just so that you know where we're at, and we're so happy to welcome you with us on this journey, let's dive into today's podcast. For a moment, I want you to ponder what you think the most important currency is. A lot of times when we think currency, we immediately think money, right? But there are also other things that can function as currency. Our time, our attention, those are some of the first ones that come to my mind. And chances are the one that feels the most important to you is probably the one that you are lacking in. Isn't that funny how that's just how we work, But today I thought it would be really abundant of us to talk about how we can manage ourselves a little more wisely. Therefore, creating the thought or the belief that we have plenty of time. You and we have plenty of time. Plenty of time to do all that we want to do. And what if we just let that thought wash over us? And we let that be this new belief for our life. As you ponder that, I want to just bring up a couple of topics and things that we can talk about around time and help us realize the areas where we are the ones stripping ourselves. Right? One of the things that, comes to mind full force for me, and I'm guessing the chances of it being for you too are pretty high, because the world that we live in seems to rob us of time. I think we had another fact on one of our podcasts in the past that talked about how we actually have more pockets of time, like more 10 to 15 minute increments. And we feel that we don't have time because of the way that we fill those increments, right? If we can learn how to manage those pockets of time better, then all of a sudden we would feel, more gathered, more on top of it, more together, more accomplished. And so that's really kind of like one of the drives of this is like, can we have this conversation yet again in our life to rearrange the way that we manage our time? And can we do it in a way that feels so dang abundant? The way that we generally might spend those pockets of time are on things that shrink our mental bandwidth. Okay, so instead of taking that time and focusing on an activity that feeds us or renews us in a certain way, we sometimes spend that time scrolling or multitasking and really kind of making us feel like not really gathered when we move to the next task and so forth. And Dr. Daniel Levitin and Dr. Sandra Bond Chapman, they did some studies in cognitive neuroscience, and they found out that actually our mental bandwidth shrinks significantly when we rush ourselves or when we multitask. So those, the way that we spend those pockets of time are so important. The prefrontal cortex of our brain is responsible for decision-making and emotional regulation. And this actually thrives when we slow down, not when we speed up. Does that just make you kind of okay, I can take a deep breath. I can slow down. I think it's interesting to even think about how quickly do you consume your podcasts? I am not kidding you that my family and we did a course together and they listened to it. My boys listened to it at 3 times speed. And I'm like, there is no way that your brain is processing what is happening here. But I think it's interesting because there's times where I can listen at a faster speed if I'm really paying attention. But also there's something to be said about what happens in the silence between the words, the thoughts that you get to have that are not being said, the things that are happening only inside of you. And so I like to just think about how even the most simple things about the way that we can be present even while we are doing something, right? That we can be aware of what thoughts are firing inside of us and the ideas that are coming, and we are giving space for that. That it is such a wholesome and good thing for our heart, our mind, our brain, all of those things. Anne Lamott said, almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including you. So good. So good. I love nature lessons, and this lesson comes to us from our beloved sunflower. What an incredible name, first of all, right? The sunflower. But do you really know that the reason why the sunflower is called the sunflower, obviously it looks like the sun, but did you know that it tracks the sun or follows the sun? So before a sunflower is fully mature, what it does is it blooms, and then during the day, the whole day, first it faces east, and then it follows the sun as it goes to noon, and then it follows the sun as it goes to the west. I never knew that until I was an adult. It blew my mind. We had this beautiful sunflower field across from our church, and I started to notice that the sunflowers were facing different ways when I went to church and when I got out of church. And I was blown away. It's fascinating. This process is called heliotropism. And if you really ponder this alignment with light, it isn't hurried or forced. It's very natural, intentional, and responsive. And once the sunflower is full grown, they do stop turning and they stand facing the east, ready to meet each new day. And their actual blooming is a result of all of the quiet, slow movement in the right direction. Ooh, we could let that settle in for just a little bit. when you allow yourself time to align with what nourishes you, growth becomes inevitable. Rushing disconnects you from the light. So here's a couple of activities, and you can expand the list, but here's a couple of ideas that act as emotional alignment. The kind of activities that give your nervous system a signal that you're safe and you're resourced and you're gathered. Journaling, meditating, visualizing your day, practicing gratitude, simply breathing without pressure. Fill up the list with what you think. Honestly, taking the time to put my laundry away or to fill up my vitamin container. I have like a week, vitamin container. If I take the time and fill that up, if I take the time to organize, my house, how you have to organize your house often so that it feels gathered, it falls apart and you got to put it back together. And the back togetherness, even though you're doing it so many times, depending on how old your kids are, because you're going to do it forever, right? But when your kids are little, it feels like you kind of have times that you do it. Otherwise, you would be doing it all the time. But, you're doing it depending on your phase of life. You're organizing your house, putting things back together. It's actually super incredible the way that these moments of attention on things that help us to feel gathered and help us to feel in tune, maybe that help our space to feel organized or help our brain to feel organized. These are incredibly valuable, high currency moments. Anthony J. D'Angelo said, "The greatest gift you can give yourself is a little bit of your own attention." Ooh, isn't it so good? It's so good. Like, sit with yourself and gather your thoughts and just let yourself think. Sometimes drive with no music on or nothing to listen to, just so that you can just be with you. I mean, I'm definitely a consumer of, I'm really thirsty for information, but I really also love the time in between to just let it sit and to percolate. It's an idea that you could wake up earlier. If that fits for you, you could be generous with yourself in that way. You could give yourself a lot of time to complete a task and to do it well. I like thinking about giving myself time to be on time because, being 10 minutes early is being on time, but being 10 minutes late or arriving like right on the dot, like think about what that actually brings to you and the feelings that come. That's one that I'm like, oh my word, I need to get better at just being early, especially to church. Like, just be early. Okay. So think of these areas that you actually might be stripping yourself of time and how you can contribute to the version of you that's more gathered and more attentive, more effective, more complete. I have a friend who recently did Ayurvedic eating, and these are the words that she was using: panchakarma, stuff like this. Okay, I don't know. I was like, "You go, my girlfriend, go." And one of her assignments as she was going through this cleanse was that she had to sit down to eat every meal. And I thought when she said that, I was like, "Well, I sit down to eat. I do that." I have totally noticed myself not sitting down to eat. Isn't that interesting? Sometimes when we actually focus on something, we see a little bit more than we thought. How many times are we overbooking ourselves or not giving ourselves decompression time after work or events? Or, you kind of at this point start to know yourself and what you need. Like, sometimes people need a lot more time to regroup, and sometimes people are so fed being, in social environments that they don't need a lot of time to regroup. So it's interesting just to kind of know your personality a little bit better and the way that you can, approach life. Maybe you could give yourself more of a margin of time between transitions when you transition from, whatever it is, if it's from your workout to, your day getting ready, and you give yourself such a short period of time. Maybe you could give yourself a little bit more time. Maybe there's areas in your life that you can think of right now that you can say, oh my word, like I am really actually stripping myself. And if I'm going to sit back and actually think about it, there's an area that I am aware of that I would feel so much more gathered in if I just gave myself more time. And if you can think of just one area today during this conversation, then this podcast was extremely successful. If you can think about an area where you strip yourself of that time and you just give yourself a little bit more, you figure out how you can do it for that one area. And when you're doing it, think of how abundant you're being to yourself, how kind and generous you're being to yourself by being that. Give yourself time to think, time to reflect, time to create. Time is one of the greatest acts of self-kindness. It's not laziness, it's presence, it's power. Being generous with your time allows for completion, not just execution. I love this quote that says, "Don't count every hour in the day, make every hour in the day count." And wow, please don't misinterpret that to rush, and go. That's like make every hour in the day count when you linger just a little bit longer by the fireplace in the morning. Still really making it count. And a lot of that depends on our thought process. So again, as we wrap up the podcast, really just pondering, what areas of life are you rushing that actually deserve a little bit more time? Because when you give yourself time, you give yourself power. And I hope that you can see that in giving yourself time, you have more power than you think you do. I hope that you love that podcast and that you have some really great takeaways. Don't forget to rate and review and subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss future mindset checks. Before we go, I want to share with you a quote from Marianne Williamson, and I want you just to take a minute to think about it. I love it from all angles, but think about it from the construct of time, what we just talked about. She says, "The key to abundance is meeting limited circumstances with unlimited thoughts." So good. Until next time, my friend.